now wanted to invite everyone to participate in our Q&A session. That's going to start now. It's a question for Dmitry, which is, what are some unique challenges for new investors who enter pharma and longevity space, regardless of the country, or if you want to give an example? And what would be your recommendation how to tackle those challenges?
During the last 2 years, first of all, because of pandemics, many investors who previously were investing in some kind of more traditional asset classes, for example, into real estate. So actually, many of them became skeptic about those industries, about those assets, and they switched. Many of them actually switched their attention towards biotech, biopharma industries. And we also do see, so that's why this is one of the causes why overall biotech industry is on the rise during the last 2 years. It's exceeding growth of most of other industries. I would say that only maybe artificial intelligence and space tech could be compared, like the dynamic of growth of those industries could be compared with biotech industry. Now, I think that for new investors who are entering biotech industry, there's quite a lot of already well-established frameworks, well-established investment funds, investment banks, so on and so forth. So I don't see any particular challenges in that field. I think that the only one interesting opportunity is indeed that if previously there was one route, standard route, like you go to Silicon Valley, you're going then to NASDAQ, and all kind of innovations are happening somewhere in the United States. So yes, indeed, it was maybe like 5 years ago, especially 10 years ago. But during last years, all this kind of Silicon Valley became distributed all around the world. There are now many Silicon Valleys, and there's Silicon Valley in Switzerland, in Singapore, in Hong Kong. So you can see new growing Silicon Valleys everywhere. In China, it is indeed extremely visible because a rise of artificial intelligence industry and the next generation technology in artificial intelligence is like extremely remarkable. I would say that by many experts, it's considered that China actually already surpassed United States in terms of dynamic development of artificial intelligence industry. And artificial intelligence is like driving, accelerating the progress in all other industries where it's applied. So my point is that for investors, there's quite a lot of opportunities to actually to play with this geographical arbitrage, because if investors can understand good gaps, inconsistencies in hubs of IP generation, intellectual property, extent of IP intellectual property generation at the same time, that companies can be also international. For example, here the case of in silico medicine was mentioned several times, including by InvestHK. The company originally was incorporated in United States. The actual initial back office was in Russia, but then the company became very much international. Now their headquarters is in Hong Kong. However, they are having operations, significant operations in Shanghai, in Taiwan, and also in the US. And like this is very good example of internationalization of most innovative companies. So my point is that for investors, it also represents quite interesting opportunity in the sense that investors, those who can become international in the sense that analyze different markets with same deep analysis, they will have some asymmetric advantage compared with locally focused investors. For that matters, of course, is required much more enhanced, much more data-driven, big data analytical driven, maybe even I would say artificial intelligence driven investment financial analytics. And Deep Pharma Intelligence, in particular, Asian Communist agencies, this is our subsidiaries, they're working exactly on that matter. So for us, for Deep Knowledge Group and our investment vehicles, this gives indeed some asymmetric advantages, competitive advantage. Now, the other field, which is longevity industry, this is much more complex. So longevity industry much more complex compared to biotech industry, and it requires indeed additional expertise. So new investors coming into longevity industry, for them there's a lot of traps, a lot of different issues, and this is like investors who experience in biotech industry, they can make a lot of let's say mistakes in longevity industry if they will try to apply the previously existing investment strategies which proved to be relevant in biotech industry. If they will try to reapply it to longevity industry, in many cases it will lead to losses, and especially it is related to companies which are pursuing to going public without having very tangible clinical success in clinical trials in humans. Unfortunately, many companies claiming that they are having something to do with longevity, with anti-aging techniques, they are pursuing to going public ahead, like as fast as possible. This creates some significant inconsistencies. But once again, for longevity industry, the level of sophistication of analytics, it's much beyond, much higher, much deeper compared with what is required for what should be considered as modern standards for investment analytics in the biotech industry. In longevity industry, it's 10 times more complex, and that's why indeed novel approaches, modern technologies, data science driven, big data analytics, AI driven technologies are required for proper investment financial analytics, SWOT analysis, due diligence, so on and so forth. And once again, our companies are actually focused on that. But maybe to answer very simply, I would recommend for new investors which will be interested in longevity industry not to invest into the companies which do not have actual tangible results proved on humans. And by the way, longevity industry, besides biomedical side, there's a lot of much more safer sectors for now, such as longevity insurtech, longevity fintech, wealth tech. Those sectors are growing quite steadily and not dependent at all on the results of clinical trials.
It's a very fair point. Thank you so much. And interesting point that you made as well about like alternative hubs that might be superseding the classical ones, let's say. I'm wondering if Gregory is with us and if he can answer what would drive businesses to start in Hong Kong. Gregory, alternative.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. The thing is, everything has a plus and minus, advantage and disadvantage. So when you're in Silicon Valley, great, everything is great, but the competition is also great. And I think everyone makes noise. Do you know what happened? Everyone talks a lot. I mean, they should work on prototypes. They should work very hard on innovation. And now they are pushed to being on stages. They should look like millionaires and so on. I think why Hong Kong is different. The thing is, we have the same level, but we are very dedicated. I think for very selected companies, we talked about medical eye companies. When they come to Hong Kong, we give them the stage. We really connect to stakeholders, to greater companies. We have actually our own funds. We have non-dilutive money. We give for 3 years, like 650,000 euro. You know, you don't have to pay back. We cultivate companies and we talk to the Hong Kong Exchange. So we nurture companies. I think in a nutshell, the advantage of Hong Kong is you're more visible. And then you have to make this organic growth. You have to grow your company, the startup, the scale up. And then we are not so narrow-minded because we have 7.5 million people. This is not the biggest market, but we have the mainland China, we have Asian connections. We actually want that you scale up in Asia, because when you make roots in Hong Kong, maybe you start with 10 people, persons as staff members, but you grow. And if you find additional partners in Japan and South Korea, we would love it. So this is the difference. It's more customized. We take you by the hand. We want to see you winning and growing in Hong Kong and Asia. And this, maybe it's the difference, like the fanciest jungle in San Francisco, you know. So this would be my take on that. Yeah. Do you have further questions?
Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate your answer. I feel like it's a very big distinction between, it's like trying to reach a customer service with a huge conglomerate and a very home-based company, right? The attention from them is going to be very different. So it's a very fair point and a very interested one in terms of how much attention and how much care you're going to get from one or another.
It's also based on experiences. You know, I worked in Japan for the biggest cluster, life science cluster. It was in Kobe. You know, Kobe is near Osaka and Kyoto. So we got hundreds of companies from Tokyo. I say, why are you not in Tokyo? And they said, nobody cares. You know, it's like New York, you know, it's a big city. And when I worked in Kobe, we nurtured the service. I landed over 350 companies with my colleagues in 10 years. So take them by the hand, talk about the markets, talk about the regulation, talk about funding, stakeholders, everything is important. And then we took also the companies abroad, you know, because many pharma in Japan, they never took the biomedical companies from Japan. So we're talking about the mega pharma in Europe, in America, etc. and so on. So this I learned, do the job customized. Now I work for Invest Hong Kong. And you could see that today the outline of Hong Kong and also the Hong Kong Exchange information. I think many things are customized. They work with a kind of intelligence and also the dedication. So it's of course also a kind of mutual exchange. You know, it is. You cannot do everything by yourself. You cannot invent the wheel again. So we need a kind of fruit basket in Europe, in America, in Asia. And maybe you say, okay, I cannot reach the market of America or Europe. Maybe I can do it in Asia. And we will help you to find a place in our ecosystem, a specific niche. That would be my take on that.
That makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for your insight. And to wrap it up, I just have one last question for Anastasia. And the question is, for people outside of this system, what would drive venture capital and private equity companies to go and invest and try and start to specialize in the healthcare and biotech? What would be the primary driver for that?
Thank you for your question, Julia. I highlighted in my presentation that health tech and biotech sector has tremendous growth for the past 2 years, especially due to COVID-19 situation. And we can see that the CAGR for the industry right now is more than 10%. And in terms of SPACs, it's even more than 200% per year. So we can see it is just a great opportunity for investors to find a great market, not only to invest in fintech and AI, but also to invest in health tech, in longevity especially, which will drive like very quick in the next coming 5-10 years. So we are going to expect high returns for the investors, and they can invest not only in the seed stage, but also in all the stages of the companies and in SPACs as well, because like when you invest in SPAC, you can have the fast track for the IPO exit if you are an investor.
Yes, that's very insightful, and thank you so much for referring to your presentation.